Hi everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of Behold. I'm Hitzer,
I'm Isa.
and we are going to be introducing a very special guest. Introduce yourself, Chris.
Hi, my name is Christopher. I am one third of a theatre group called Matter Theatrics,
hmm
and this is my first time on this podcast.
That's awesome. If you listen to Genre Equality, Chris obviously has been a guest a couple of times.
hmm
But for those who are unfamiliar with you, like what do you do in Dark Matter Theatrics? Are you an actor? Are you a playwright?
I am primarily of the playwright denomination as well as the main producer for all of our shows.
That's awesome. Okay. So this week, we'll be talking about three different topics. But for our main topic, we'll be talking about HBO's Barry,
hmm
created by Bill Hader himself. Chris, you have seen the first season, and I think that was because the three of us, or maybe the two of us, have hung out, and I have been I think in 2018 or 2017, relentlessly trying to get people to watch the show because it was one of my favorites back
Yep,
then,
yep.
and it remains one of my favorites. So we'll be talking about the underrated, underseen dramedy Barry,
Yep.
which concerns Bill Hader. It stars Bill Hader as a hitman, an assassin for hire, who is suddenly taken in by a new passion. He discovers one day he's tracking a new target. He's going to kill him, but the target is a wannabe amateur theater actor. And he discovers a passion, a thespian passion. So he decides in this show to transition from being a professional hitman to an amateur theater actor with a local, frankly inept theater troupe. And that is the premise for this very, very, very dark comedy. So
hmm
let's kick it off with our guest this week. So Chris, when you started watching Barry, what do you think about it?
If you're talking just about this first season, my first
Mm-hmm.
entry into it, the I was really taken by not the action part, but by the familiarity of that theater troupe drama.
I mean,
Like that,
and you as a playwright, right, have unique insight into that, right?
yeah. It was the thing about Gene, right? The theater director
Yep.
or
Played
the
by played by
theater.
Henry Winkler, yeah.
Yep. The thing about him is that he is an amalgamation of all the bad qualities of what would make a really earnest but believes himself to be egotistically the best director there is ever.
I
Uh,
Yeah, based on the fact that he just had a couple of commercials, right?
it's one of and that really sucked me in because a lot of the games that they played and the exercises that they partook in, when you take it out of a rehearsal context and put it into a performance aspect, right, it looks ridiculous from the outside. But when you're in it, like you take it very seriously. And so the Barry was a fantastic way to kind of look at how we look like on the inside from the outside. And it was funny. It was also um, very uncomfortable to watch for me, myself personally.
And that makes total sense considering your experience in the theater scene. Would you say that things like that, I mean, obviously, not all theater troupes are this bad, but would you say that there is an authenticity to it?
Yes, there is. It's the utter earnestness of knowing that you are doing something right, but you don't know whether you look right doing it. You
Mm-hmm.
understand what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And I think like that is uh, prevalent for any kind of theater troupe that starts out. Like watching Gene's little microcosm of the theater world in his black box theater reminded me so much of my own first steps into performing and having my own rehearsal room and an ensemble and trying to get them to do stuff, trying to make it authentic. And I think the word authenticity is really something that is rare to find in a show, and it has that. Barry has that.
Definitely. What about you, Isa? How did you start watching the show, and what were your like first impressions of it?
Let me see. I think definitely it sparked from one of our conversations pretty
Mm-hmm.
early on. I did not finish the first season in its entirety when it came out. I think I dropped off like maybe midway through, just before like the really good parts start kicking in.
Mm,
With the mobsters and all of that. So I did find it funny, but I think at that point in time I just didn't have it just wasn't on like my top list of things to watch. But revisiting the first couple of episodes from season one, and I'm done through the majority of season two. It's a riot. It really is. And there's just something about the way the tone of the series is fascinating because I don't think we've gotten anything quite like this where you have a very neat balance of the dark elements and like the quite honestly slapstick um humor that you get in certain parts, and the balancing between the drama side of it and the very uncomfortable comedy that you get
mm.
out of the earnestness of the characters that we get to know. So it's been a fun ride. I'm looking forward to see what's going to happen in season three, which is now. Is it now?
No, season three. I mean, they were in the middle of production when obviously the shutdown happened due to the
Yeah.
COVID-19 pandemic. So I mean, we have really no clear timeline for when this or many shows are coming back. So this is probably like what we'll
Hmm.
have for the time being.
Mm,
Yeah, I mean, and touching upon what Isa said, I really feel like this is, uh, I mean, all dramedies obviously balance drama and comedy, hence the name.
yeah.
But
Hmm.
this is remarkably tonally audacious in
Mm,
that like it is unafraid to be so crushingly harrowing
yeah.
and gut bustingly hilarious at the same time. It's a really narratively precarious high wire tonal act lah, that they've been able to achieve here lah.
Hmm.
And it's kind of part fish out of water situational comedy in terms of Barry trying to be an actor, and in terms of really the bubble that the LA theater community live in, and also this part like unflinchingly dark character study about the emotional toll of murder,
Yeah.
and it's pretty brilliant lah. When did you like start to get the idea that this was like more than just like a regular a good show to like a great show? Like let's start with Chris lah. Like was there like a point where you thought, wow, this is special?
I would say first episode.
Oh
I
really?
thought
Like from the get
I
go?
from the get go, it hooked me mainly of because I when I watch things, my analysis brain goes into overdrive when I really like it, right?
Mm,
And for this, I was always looking at how uh, the mundaneness of both the murdery side of things and the theater side of things seem to go somewhat hand in hand for
it's
some
just a job,
reason.
right?
It's
Yeah.
just a job, and that the comparison is you can't show real violence on stage. Everything has to be acted. Everything
Mm,
has to be crafted, right? But with the
Mm,
medium of television and special effects, or sometimes just really good uh, blood bags, right? The action itself, like the falseness of theater, the artifice of theater became much more prominent, and so
mm,
did, and because of that, uh, you would think that the artifice of theater would reflect on the fictional quality of this serial killer killing everybody and all the blood and the bullets and everything, but it just served to highlight how much more real that was
mm-hmm.
for me. So, um, to to encase my point in, yeah, from the get go, like that, it really sucked me in.
Awesome. And for you, Isa, like you mentioned, you dropped off about halfway in the first season. What was the episode that made you like really hooked when
ooh.
you came back to it?
Um. I'm okay from the get go. It's good. I enjoyed it, but I think for me is when they started doing like scenes from Macbeth.
Mm,
That particular episode, or over the two episodes that they were kind of exploring that particular that short arc, right?
yep.
Was when it really got me. I think when Bill Hader has his when Barry has his flashbacks, right? And what's her name says like, you got to give me something, Barry. You got to give me something
Yes.
to
Yeah.
work with, and he gives everything basically in that one line,
Hmm.
right? My lord.
Oh yeah,
uh,
yeah. Like this
yeah,
little bit part. I think I know what you're talking about. Season 1,
yeah,
episode 7.
y-
It's
yeah,
when he was, reluctantly forced to murder one of his war buddies.
yes.
Mm,
In a beautifully acted scene in the car, and then he kind of
Yeah.
brought that emotion onto stage. Yeah, that was when I
Hmm.
thought it was special as well.
Yeah, that for me was like it was brilliant. I had to hit pause for a bit just to kind of let that sink in.
Hmm.
And that was the point in which I'm like, okay, like this just went from good to great. And I'm on board for this. Like I'm sold. Yeah.
Definitely, man. Like I think like with the immersion into the LA theater scene, there's an abundance of physical and organic comedy. Like the humor is universal, of
mm.
course, but stage nerds like Chris will like get a kick out of the specificity of the theater jokes.
So much, so
Yeah.
much. Every
But
time when Gene opens his mouth, I just want to slap him.
Like I remember
yeah,
he has this one portion where he brings up Brecht, right?
Yeah,
He goes into this whole
Brad.
Brecht, and I'm just like, oh my god, this is like really
I
cool.
think like it was the beginning of the first episode for this season, where for season two, where he just went like, oh, wait, what did who was it? What did Grotowski do on the first day when he came down to dinner? I'm like, what the hell? Just want to slap him so badly, but I mean, like the points he does make are great, but he just doesn't have to name drop every single time. It's just so irritating. Love him as a character.
Yeah,
exactly. But
he's such a fascinating character. And even his side story with his romance with Moss, Detective Moss, is pretty fascinating.
yeah,
Yeah.
and obviously, spoiler alert. Like if you're listening to this, you've probably already seen it. Like if you don't want to hear it, like I'm gonna give a major spoiler for the end of season 1. Obviously, it ends with Barry's murder of Detective Moss, which is kind of the crux of season 2.
Hmm.
And what I really loved about the framing device, like besides the comedy of the theater, is that like Barry is presented at first as an almost cold-blooded, emotionless shell going through PTSD from his experiences in the Afghanistan war.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And the emotionless shell of him makes him terrible at acting, but like as he grows to understand the empathy needed for his craft, like the sociopathy that makes killing easier for him
Yeah.
begins to wane. And that's kind of the crux of the show, and that's what I really like we're initially presented with like easy escape routes to excuse Barry's killing. Like he's nice, he's
Hmm.
awkward, he has PTSD, but once he is forced to do some very violent and horrible things, like you're also forced to reconsider how likable Barry is. And unlike other anti-hero shows, Barry like never forces his audience to root for his protagonist, and it's
Hmm.
refreshing to see that Barry's arc doesn't shy away from the stomach churning nature of his innate darkness lah. And how is he
Hmm.
the show is able to kind of balance that with the lightness. um have you ever seen Bill Hader in a dramatic role before, and were you impressed with what this dramatic performance from him? uh,
Mm, wait, I need to find out what I've seen him in. My goodness,
well,
he's done Inside Out.
yeah, Barry is. I'm sorry. Bill Hader is primarily a comedic actor. He started out on Saturday Night Live. He's a stand-up comedian, and a bit like Bob Odenkirk from Better Call Saul. Like this is one of those like comedians that kind of found a second career resurgence as a dramatic actor because of Barry.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
Is this the first dramatic? I
He's had
think
he's
so.
had one indie film like a while back that pretty much nobody saw. But like for the better part of Barry, yeah, this is his first like real deep dive into dramatic performance.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. This is my first time for sure.
he's a he's a fascinating character study though.
Mm,
He I okay. While you were talking about it, it reminded me a lot of another show like Dexter,
yeah, yeah.
right? right? We start out this somewhat facade of humanness, and then we look into the sociopathic tendencies, whereas this is like the kind of complete reverse,
Mm-hmm.
right? In terms of his portrayal, but he doesn't. What I like about the fact about his comedic moments is that he approaches them very humanly,
Mm.
Yeah.
like right, and that lends it much more likable. Actually, I don't pity him as a character, not once throughout
Mm-hmm.
the two seasons. I didn't pity his situation. Like he found himself in all those situations with all the lies that he was telling, right, and all the
He made conscious
people
choices
he
and
killed.
everything. Yeah.
Yep. I think for me, like the real hero is not actually Bill Hader. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's his counterpart, Sally.
Sally. Yeah.
She's
Yeah.
the real hero.
I mean, like, let's talk about Sally for a bit, because, like, I think, like, it's a really brilliantly written and brilliantly played character by
Oh yeah.
Sarah Goldberg. I think
Hmm.
in most uh let's call it prestige drama, anti-hero type of things, like The Sopranos, Breaking Bad, etc. The girlfriend is often presented as a narrative obstacle, or
Hmm.
like the manic pixie dream girl who brings light to the sad man, but
Hmm.
Sally on her own individually, her arc is rich and worthwhile, and honestly, like, far more sympathetic than Barry's arc is.
Hmm.
And I think it's quite powerful. Like, what do you think about that, Isa?
Uh, I had kind of trouble liking Sally's character, especially in the beginning, right? Like it
Mm.
felt very obvious. Like the
Yep.
setup felt very obvious. Okay, this is going to be the future love interest, and especially going into the first couple of episodes of season one.
Yeah.
I think like as we dive into a bit more Sally focused moments, right? It's a very interesting the kind of um essentially Barry's about performance, right? Like even Barry as a hitman performs as a hitman. You know, he has fallen into it because it's a role that he has found himself in because of Goran, not Goran, Fuchs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Finding him when he was a bad place in his life, or even when that whole montage, did the whole flashback with him as a sniper, a marine sniper, right? It's to use Shakespeare, right? Like it was thrust upon him, basically,
Yep.
right? And then the counterpart to that is this whole idea that Sally performs her role as an actress. Like at no point in time do you really get to know who Sally is, other than the fact that she's an aspiring actress. Until you get to like the really nitty gritty, the fact that she's struggling, um, to make ends meet. The fact that she's trying really hard to hustle her a possible agent multiple times at that. And the kind of like harassment that she faces due to that. Right. It's
Mm-hmm.
not until you hit these very kind of like deeply human and deeply painful moments that you start to see her as kind of human, as opposed to her just simply playing an aspiring actress role
Yeah.
in her own life.
Yeah. Or love interest in Barry's life, lah.
Yeah, I don't think she's ever seen herself as kind of a love interest in Barry's life, not until
Mm.
like the end of season
No,
one.
she's a hero.
Yep.
in
Mm.
Yep.
her in her in her own mind. She's a hero, and
Mm.
that particular heroism, right, it's played out very very well in this
Mm.
second season, especially
Mm.
her arc.
Yes, yes, I 100% agree with that, lah. I mean, obviously the show is centered on his titular character, but like, I like how it's fleshing out all the side characters. I think specifically, like, Gene Cosino also has kind of a good
Mm,
arc in the second season, and at first you kind of see him as like this one note buffoon,
yeah.
and then there's some depth to him that is laid on, lah, and I'm hoping that we get to see more of that from the other characters, but from the more, like, straight up comedic aspects of the show. Like, I think Anthony Carrigan, who plays NoHo Hank,
Oh
is
God,
Oh,
yes.
is
oh my.
incredible. He is like the funniest thing I've seen on TV in a long time.
I love it. Like his comedic timing is excellent. Right. At any given point in
Excellent.
time, like just how he's got that strange kind of like earnest, awkward stare in awkward
Yeah.
silences on the thing that just make things hilariously funny to watch. And he might be my favorite character on the show, actually.
like
every scene with him.
he kind of steals the show a bit. Like he's this effusively positive, naive member of the Chechen mafia, and every
Uh-huh.
storyline with him is frankly ridiculous. Like in season two when he's asking Barry to train his Chechen mafia army, and like just
Wow.
look at how like stupidly incompetent they are. It's pretty incredible, and his whole like uh crime family love triangle with the Bolivian mafia and like the
And the
Burmese mafia is fucking hilarious.
It's so good. It's so good. And the way it plays out is really kind of like a family drama, right?
Hmm.
It's just like he adds to I mean
It's the names also. I feel
yeah.
like this whole entire show, the comedy of it also is in the names. Like
Yeah,
Esther. Esther. I cannot look at her and call her an Esther. It's just
Yeah.
does not. And same. What's the Burmese? Not the Burmese. The other.
As in the
Uh,
Bolivian
the Bolivian one. What's his name?
oh man, I
oh
forgot his name, but he's hilarious too.
Polida.
Cristobal.
Cristobal?
Cristobal.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah. Oh man, like I love all the side characters in the show. It's pretty insane lah. Like even like I did not expect like in season two like for some of the dark moments to actually come from the theater side of the show, and
Yeah.
some of the
Mm,
lighter comedy moments to come from the crime side of the show. Because in season one
yeah.
it was obviously like oh blood and murder and death. That's the dark part. But
Mm-hmm.
in season two, like some of the theater like arcs were actually more human and more painful than the the Hank thing, obviously, because that's just
Yeah.
frankly hilarious. Oh man, what do you think about? Have you seen in season two this episode where Barry has encounters this feral little girl who knows taekwondo and has that like
Yes.
long fight scene? Like
Oh my goodness.
that was directed and written by Bill Hader. What do you think about that, Chris?
It was it was gruesome to watch. It was so funny. It was so funny. Like there was this one point. Okay, not spoiling too much, right? The father
Mhm.
comes back into the supermarket. I thought it looked like a scene straight out of like The Walking Dead.
Yeah, yeah.
I like there was just something about the coloring, the positioning, and that girl. She reminded me of like Logan from Weapon X.
Yeah, yeah, she was actually like pretty much X-23 from Logan.
Yeah,
Eh,
it was really well done. I really enjoyed it.
I think from like a directional sense, like the opening, I think 15 or 16 minutes were essentially this one take fight scene between Barry and this little girl. It, was, it
Yeah.
was it was pretty insane. Like it was one of the more surreal moments of the show. Like you said, like the show is fairly grounded, lah. But there was like
Mm,
almost a superhero fight that was going on, and it was taking place over real time, over a day. Also, as they were chasing this little girl around, and she's jumping along trees and stuff like that. And it was
yeah.
just like, what the fuck am I watching?
She's, and the thing about it is that they keep on pointing out the obvious because she's just going to sit there like a gargoyle.
Yeah. I think it's great. It's one of
Great.
Bill Hader's best performances, one of his best directing efforts, and one of his best
Mm.
writing efforts as well. Did you get to that point, Isa, in season two?
That is episode 5. Yes, I did. In fact, I just watched it earlier today.
Yeah, yeah, the one where he encounters the Taekwondo champion and his daughter, right?
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
He's asked to kill them. That was amazing, lah. Like
That was
I saw
amazing.
the episode last year, and I'm still thinking about it this year. Like it's so fresh in my head.
What are you?
Oh man, yeah, it's like I think like before we conclude, Chris and let's start with Isa first, lah. Like are there any other like side characters or arcs or things that you wanted to like elucidate on before we jump to our concluding thoughts?
I really want to read Jean Cossonneau's book. I really, really do because I'm so curious. Like so many random side characters call it life changing, right?
Yeah,
Ryan Madison calls it life changing, and then Taylor the Marine calls it life changing, and I'm
yeah,
just like, what exactly is in this book of probably like theater truisms, right?
Uh,
That is so compelling to like these strange, really kind of like caricatured characters, right? for them to kind of call it that. And we don't actually see Barry finish the book at any point in time, do we?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah, so I that's something that's just been kind of hanging over my head for a while. And then of course they refer back to it like early in season two. I can't give you a refund, but I'll give you a discount coupon for my book. So I just want to know what's in the book. I think that would be pretty funny, just to like
Yep.
have an episode where they just talk about what's in the book.
Me too,
I,
man. What about you, Chris?
actually, I'm quite curious about Fuchs. Actually,
Hmm.
for a really major character plot device, sometimes, right,
Mm.
with Barry, in terms of inciting rolling situations, right, his
Yep.
background is very vague,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I'm quite curious to see whether in season three they start to kind of explore him a bit more because I mean, like they punished him really fast, right, in
Yep.
this
Yes.
season.
Mm-hmm.
So it was they didn't give me enough backstory. But I mean, like there's so much things to mine from this particular show. So I'm really excited to see what happens next.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that as well because I feel like every season has done a great job of like expanding a previously side character. So I mean, I guess you got to save some stuff for future seasons, and Monroe Fuchs is one of the big ones that they are definitely gonna, I hope, dive into next season.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
For me, I love Henry Winkler. I think like he's such a legendary actor, and like
yep.
it's amazing that he is able to basically poke fun at himself like this,
Yeah.
uh,
Mhm.
make himself look like a fool, essentially, but yeah, at the same time, does have that kind of sad depth to him where you almost feel sorry for him, even
Yep.
he's at his most self obsessed.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. But I mean, in the end, also like Barry is your main character, like, and Barry at its most powerful is when we see that juxtaposition between Barry's killer instincts versus the man he wants to be. Uh,
Hmm.
him questioning whether he is evil, and really, really and really questioning it, like genuinely questioning whether he is a good person or not. He imbues the character with so much likability, but when he has that switch, where, like when he transforms into that Travis Bickle more militaristic mode, and
Hmm.
he does seem frightening as well. So I
Yeah.
think it's a very wonderful multi-dimensional performance from Bill Hader.
Yeah. It's really quite. I mean, it's the fact that he's on board for every part of this series, right? In the creative aspect of it is pretty mind blowing. I have to say, like I didn't think like watching him on SNL that he would have that kind of like repertoire at his disposal.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I'm so impressed and big fan, and I look forward to see what they're going to do in season three. Hopefully, we'll get to see that soon.
I agree, man. Chris, do you have any concluding thoughts?
Mm, I wonder. I wonder when they're gonna get to like interpretive device theater season three. I mean, they're doing like right now. Like the first one was like really like looking at very elementary theater performance, right? Then this
Yeah,
Hmm.
season was looking at confessional theater. Maybe next season will be interpretive device theater. You never know.
yeah.
Like I'm just curious to see what's next.
100% agree, man. I think Barry is one of the best shows that very few people are actually talking about. It
Hmm.
is like in terms of like genius level, top level dramedies, like Atlanta and things like that. I think Barry is right up there in the top tier as one of the bravest and like tonally audacious dramedies out there lah. And
Hmm.
I've been reading a lot of Bill Hader interviews because of Barry. Apparently he himself was from the Midwest, much like Barry is. He came to LA to become a director. And then he stumbled upon a sketch comedy troupe which he joined, which is how he made his career. But he never
Hmm.
wanted
Hmm.
to be a comedian. He just wanted to be a dramatic director and actor. And he's using his clout from SNL to actually, finally get what he wanted to do. And I think he's doing a great job with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and that was our discussion for Barry. Thanks so much, Chris, for coming on. And for for those of the people who want to find out what Dark Matter Theatrics is doing, where can they follow you guys?
Well, you can follow us on Facebook, Dark Matter Theatrics. We are, because of COVID, we are currently only doing our Orbital series, which is basically a book club for international plays, where we choose plays from different countries from our peers, and we get perfect strangers to read them out
Oh
and
wow, that
discuss
sounds
about
awesome.
it.
Are you guys doing it remotely?
Yes, we're planning for the next one to be done remotely. We have no choice. I mean,
Oh
like
wow.
in the preset portion of COVID-19, right? When it first started out, we still held one orbital, but we were very careful about it, like with temperature taking, uh, disclaimer forms, and things like that.
Mm.
So yeah, but now we're gonna go take it online.
That's awesome, man. I'm looking forward to checking it out as well, and I hope all of our listeners also check that out. Remember Dark Matter Theatrics. Follow them on Facebook. Thanks so much, Chris, for coming on to Behold.
Yep.
Oh, thank you so much.
Good to have you. We will have you on board for some other stuff in the future for sure.
Definitely,
Definitely.
definitely. Chris, one of our favorite guests. Thanks again.
Back. This is Hit Zero again.
And Isa.
As you heard, Chris joined us for Barry, but now we are jumping into our recommendation exchange. This is where we will be every episode of Behold. Isa will recommend me something I haven't seen. I'll recommend Isa something that he hasn't seen, and then we'll both exchange thoughts about. This is basically just a way for us to expand our pop culture knowledge and things that may have been our blind spots.
Yep. Exactly right.
At first up, is Demon Slayer. Tell us about the premise, Isa.
Yeah, so Demon Slayer or wow, I can't even pronounce this Japanese one. But yeah, Demon Slayer, also known as Blade of Demon Destruction,
Yeah.
started off as a Japanese manga series that caught on really well. But what's really been making waves is the anime adaptation of it. So originally it was in Shonen Jump, as many great and popular anime series kind of start out. And essentially, we follow a boy called Tanjiro, who becomes a demon slayer after his family is slaughtered by a demon, and his younger sister, is turned into a demon.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the essential premise behind it. UFO Table did the anime series, and I have to say, it's one of the most gorgeous, kind of like visually stunning animes to have come out recently. And surprisingly, he's had not watched it until recently for Behold, right?
Yes, Demon Slayer came out 2019, if I'm not mistaken. And it's obviously like it took over for at least the anime zeitgeist lah.
Yeah.
It was absurdly popular.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people have seen, and now that it's on Netflix, more people have seen it. I think it's quite universally beloved.
Yep.
In 2019, I don't know how to describe it. I was suffering from what I would call shonen fatigue, where I was just like mentally done with these kinds of shows. You know what I mean? Like the trope of the weak person, something bad happens, and then they go through training, and then they encounter other stronger people, and then they beat them, and then things like that lah. So I was just like very burnt out by the trope of shonen.
Yep.
So it took me a while to like re-energize, and to be honest, I'm still burnt out. So it takes like something really really special for me to get back on board, or to be invested in it. And to be fair to Demon Slayer, it is probably the best representation of that archetype I've seen in a long time. I think Demon Slayer is a fantastic anime.
Yep.
And perhaps I shouldn't have let my shonen fatigue uh, stop me from watching this, because like this clearly transcends that genre. Yes, it has a lot of the tropes as well, but
Yep.
it's
For sure.
fantastic. What it does is it's like you mentioned, it's number one, it's one of the most visually stunning animes I've ever seen. Each scene is crisp and beautiful, and no point does it feel like it's lazily animated in the 26 episodes so far. I can't get over how beautiful it looks, and I love all the arcs. I love the battle scenes,
Yo,
the
yes.
fight scenes. some of the most like thrilling and exciting. And I know episode 19 has kind of become something of a legendary episode in the anime sphere. Episode 19,
Mm-hmm.
sorry,
Mm-hmm.
and it's brilliant, and number one, the pacing is great too. I was hooked from the beginning. The storytelling is fantastic,
Uh,
and it does like adhere to a lot of anime cliches, but it does them so well that I
mhm.
don't care. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, my initial thoughts kind of going into that, I totally understand shonen fatigue, right? Because like I'm thinking like what 80%, right, of all anime that comes out has some sort of like shonen trope or some kind of can be categorized as shonen very broadly, right? And of course, we're big fans of My Hero, which is shonen.
Mm-hmm.
And then we are also big fans of anime that kind of like trump that trope. So your One Punch Mans and even maybe
Mob
your
Psycho.
Fukos, and yeah,
Oh yeah, things
exactly.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, like what really caught me in the kind of beginning, like in the very first episode, was just like the animation is great, but their use of like kind of digital media within the, more traditional anime style, right, reminded me a lot of like an updated version of Puella Magi Madoka Magica, right, which is this
Mm.
kind of like legendary anime series from Shaft, which is my by far one of my favorite anime studios. Um, and I thought it was fascinating, like just how well that kind of gelled together, and because I really love Puella Magica. It's was groundbreaking for its time, and I like seeing something done in that kind of style where you have like a mix of animation styles. Really kind of like piqued my interest. That and the fact that the music is great.
Mm.
I didn't really because obviously first episode we don't really get into the meat of things yet. Although as far as anime series go, like the first three episodes are a very, very condensed introduction to the plot, the characters, and the world building. One of the best montage training episodes I've ever seen.
Taking place over two
Where
years.
basically like yeah, over 2 years, and they condensed it into a single episode, and it was so well
Mm.
done, so incredibly well done. It felt a lot like what My Hero did with that catch up episode at the beginning of season 3, the one by the
With
pool.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I also thought
Yeah,
that it
so
reminded
like
me a
it.
lot of All Might training Deku, like in the second episode when he was trying to build up his muscles and stuff like that.
The beach cleanup one. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the beach cleanup one. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But I don't think I've ever seen a training montage that's that tight, right? And at no point in time did I roll my eyes. Oh my god, there's a training montage. Just like at the end of the episode, oh shit, 2 years have passed, right? He's a
Mm-hmm.
decent enough, well, he wasn't a slayer at that point yet, but he's a
He was
decent
good
enough
enough to
fighter.
he was good enough to go to the exam, like not
Yeah,
even to be a fighter. Like he
yeah,
just barely made it. And that was the
yeah.
amount of training that it took to be like to just go through an interview. And I was like, wow, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, yeah. It was intense, and it pretty sick. I think the reason I like Demon Slayer so much is because unlike a lot of shonen anime that even the ones that we love, right, there is no filler,
Mm.
right? There's absolutely no filler. The pacing of it like is pretty perfect, all right, as far as it goes. I feel like it's one of those things, especially people who are watching now on Netflix, like it's so bingeable just because it's the forward momentum is so strong, right? Like there's never a point in time when you're just like, oh, you know what, I'm gonna take a couple of maybe a couple of days break from this just because it's a filler episode, I'm not really interested. We've got
Yeah.
none of that, right? Like it's straight through, the action is great, even the quieter moments are great, very pensive, and a lot of very deep questions that are being asked of very young characters. But yeah, I think that just outside of the fact that it's already become part of popular consciousness, right, pop culture consciousness at the moment, it has all the makings of becoming a classic. I'm really, really excited to see where this goes, and if they can kind of if the creators can kind of keep up the pace with that. There's a fair
Mm.
bit more to cover from the manga itself, and I'm really hoping that UFO Table continue to be the ones to do this, and we won't have another like animation quality drop off like we did with One Punch Man, or
Yeah. Yeah.
with Fate Night and all of that. Like all these very beloved franchises which had great first seasons, and like kind of like got left by the wayside. So I'm hoping it's more like Mob Psycho, where they just like, okay, we're gonna sink all our time into this because it's worth the franchise is worth it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think UFO Table have ever done anything wrong. So in the midst of everything that we are receiving now as far as shonen goes, right? Demon Slayer stands out as a very different kind of presentation. You have all the usual things like you would get in your Naruto and your Bleach, where he's beaten down, his body is literally broken. Like the number of times this boy fights with like grievous kind of wounds is pretty
Mm.
insane. And Nezuko is a great kind of side character that as she functions as kind of like a plot device in the very beginning, but then she kind of comes into her own, right? And
Mm-hmm.
because she doesn't speak, that makes it even more like compelling. Like just with the grunting and just the animation alone, you get a sense of who she is as a character, and that's exceedingly difficult to do
Mm.
most of the time. So yeah.
Yeah.
What are some standout moments for you, hits from season one?
I mean, obviously, like episode 19, is one of the best anime episodes I've seen in recent memory.
Mm.
In fact, like one of the just in general one of the best episodes I've seen. Like it's incredibly exciting. The fight scenes beautifully animated.
Oh my god, yeah.
There's a real sense of grievous danger to these children.
Yeah.
That like I don't quite see or feel in other enemies. The injuries that he suffers, the time he takes to recover, things like that. I really enjoyed even the side characters, like the two sidekicks he picks up, for other demon slayers.
Yeah.
Were very interesting. There's the cowardly one who you kind of want to root for, but he's so annoying
Yeah.
and a bit like I wouldn't say he's as bad as Mineta, but kind of pervy as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Zenitsu is a fascinating character. I mean, Mineta gets a shitload of hate, and for good reason.
yeah.
But I think
I don't think he's that bad as Mineta, but like closer.
he fulfills that character archetype. But man, is that boy overpowered? Seriously.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think it's understandable within the way that they wanted to write the character that they needed to kind of like nerf him down a bit, just to make sure that there's still a story to tell. But that fight that he had in episode 19, damn,
Mm-hmm.
really really good stuff. I love how, um, and again, this is kind of a testament to the way that they pace everything. That everybody gets a solid backstory, right?
Mm-hmm.
They always spend the necessary amount of time to make sure that whether friend or foe, whether hero or villain, right? They always give you just enough flashback for you to come to an understanding of why we're in the situation we are in. And that is so important, right? As far as it goes for audiences being invested in the storyline, right? Otherwise it's just flash, but we enjoy the flash, but at the same time we are incredibly invested in the stories of all of these characters.
Mm-hmm.
And for once, I think once in a long time, we finally get a protagonist in Tanjiro that I truly feel for and am not annoyed by,
Mm.
because his motivations are very clear and very defined, and you understand where he's coming from, right? Or why he makes the decisions that he makes. He's not a whiny protagonist, which is a breath of fresh air,
Mm.
as far as shonen has been in the last like decade or so. There's so many whiny shonen protagonists. uh,
Attack on Titan, etc. Yeah.
yeah, and it just feels like, I'm rooting for this boy like the whole way through,
Mm.
right? But at the same time, like his ability to kind of empathize with
Demons.
the demons, right? It's a particularly strong point here. It's not like how it's done in like Naruto, whereby, oh, he has like kind of like a earnest winning personality, and he kind of like wins over everybody that he has to fight against and all of that. Like there's a genuine sadness that comes about, that is portrayed whenever he talks about the ways demons exist and the things that they're forced to do sometimes outside of their own will, or even this sadness about the decisions that they make, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is incredibly compelling, to see a young shonen anime protagonist have, because that's something that we don't get um, regularly at all.
I agree, man. I think like Demon Slayer in particular has been compared a lot structurally to Bleach.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think like like you mentioned, like Bleach kind of has a lot of filler. Demon Slayer doesn't.
Yeah.
It has better pacing. Obviously, like technology is better, so the animation is better.
Yeah.
And it's so good at characterization, right? That like every time a demon dies, they kind of spend like 30 seconds or less
Yeah.
in flashback for the backstory,
Yeah.
and like that is enough to get you invested in who the demon was,
Oof.
and that's how good it is.
Yeah.
Like that 30 seconds like makes me understand, completely distills the demon backstory in like a quick flashback, and I'm like, oh man, I feel bad for him.
It's so good. It is so good. I mean, like how that flashback sequence, that those 30 seconds that they give you, right, recontextualizes the entire episode, the entire fight for you, right? And then like
Yeah.
it adds so much more and so many more layers to just kind of like the story and trying to understand that this isn't just about a boy getting his powers and becoming incredibly powerful and kind of like steamrolling everything that's in his way. Every fight is hard won and
Mm.
well earned and incredibly tragic at the same time, and
Mm.
that's something that we really haven't seen. I think the last time I had some a franchise kind of like stir similar feelings for me was Avatar,
Mm. Yes.
with Legend of Aang, right? And like it's obviously Avatar is a very different kind of beast, compared to a typical shonen anime. But like for them to be able to squeeze what they're doing in this particular season, like over the 26 episodes, like damn, like I'm
Mhm.
so taken by the way that they've decided to go about it and the kind of creative decisions that they've made. It is um really a solid example of great storytelling.
Yes, I mean, I 100% agree. One of the honestly one of the best enemies, at least of this type, that I've seen in a very long time. I'm
Mm,
so glad I watched it. If you're not watching it, right, it's on Netflix right now. I mean, obviously, if you're in America or stuff like that, it's on Toonami and Crunchyroll and Adult Swim and other things. But if you're in Singapore, do check it out on Netflix, man. I think it's 100% worth your time, and like the peak at just super top tier, top drawer shonen anime.
yeah, absolutely. Look forward to season 2, which has been confirmed already. I think we're getting the
There's a movie coming out first, right?
yeah. So there'll be a movie while we're waiting for the season 2. Season 2 has been confirmed, but the actual release date has not been announced yet, just because UFO Table have are currently focusing on the movie, and also
Yep.
because of like delays, from the pandemic and things like that. But yeah, I mean, like a solid, if we were to review it, it's a 10 out of 10 for me. A very taken, highly recommended to anyone who, I mean, even if it's not, I think Demon Slayer is a great introductory anime,
Mm.
right? Like a lot of times people say, oh, I don't really watch anime. Like, what should I get into? And many times I'm very tempted to give them kind of like classics, right? But those I tend to forget that sometimes pacing isn't great, artwork isn't as great as what it is now. But it's anime like Demon Slayer or even anime like My Hero as well. I think it's a great kind of introductory franchise for people to kind of like dig into. But now with it on Netflix, right? I mean, please watch it, and if you love it, please recommend it to a friend, because I think it's some great stuff, and and I really want people to see it so that it gets enough viewership and gets enough support for this to be a long running franchise.
Mm.
And hopefully, like I think in a couple of years' time, it will be up there with our Hunter Hunters and our Naruto's and our One Pieces and all of that. And I think it might surpass those. I really do.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like if it continues delivering on the quality of season one, I 100% agree that it will be right up there with all the other legendary enemies that we've had so far.
Yeah.
Yep. Do check it out on Netflix if you can. Next up, we'll be talking about a very super underseen teen comedy from 2019 called Booksmart.
Oh yeah.
To my chagrin, it didn't come to Singapore last year in cinemas, and I was like, why? I had to watch it on Netflix, and it's not available in Netflix US or Netflix Singapore.
Yeah.
I had to go to Netflix France. I had to use like ExpressVPN.
Are you serious?
Go,
France?
yeah. One of my friends. At that point, it wasn't even out on DVD or VOD. So even if you wanted to rent it or iTunes, or if you wanted to torrent it, even like you couldn't find it anywhere because it was a fresh release, and I was so excited for it. that I was asking around, and one of my friends, well, Hadi's friend actually, like Alison Lopez, told me that, oh, Netflix France has it. I was like, what the fuck? Okay, so I got on my VPN, changed it to France, and I got to watch Booksmart.
Interesting. So, what led you to Booksmart? I mean, how did you discover its existence since it was so hard to kind of like get your hands on?
I'm First of all, like it's Olivia Wilde, who I'm a big fan of as an actress. It was a directorial debut,
Uh huh.
wonderful directorial debut. I'm a big fan of Caitlin Dever and Edie Feldstein,
Yep.
the two girls who are obviously the co-stars of the film.
Yep.
If you aren't aware, Caitlin Dever and Beanie Feldstein is Jonah Hill's younger sister, by the way. You can actually tell from her eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And the best way to describe Booksmart, this is an oversimplification. It's so much more than that. But the best way to describe it is super bad for girls.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
for sure. But yeah.
it follows like best friends Amy and Molly. They spent all of high school buckling down. They skipped every party. They studied in the library and they participated in extracurriculars and all of that just so that they can get to the colleges of their choice. Not they think like the burnout partying classmates destined for lives working in the gas station or something, right?
Yep.
They get into Yale and Columbia, and after the summer, they go around talking to their classmates and they realize that everyone else who had a social life, who had partied, who had gone to play sports and things like that, also themselves got into Ivy Leagues.
Yes.
And they realized that they're not special just because they dedicated their lives to academia.
Yep.
They feel like they were rewarded, so they were going to spend their last night in high school trying to make up for all the parties that they didn't go to by having like one last wild night out. It's a very simple premise, and I think it's in the canon of teen comedies. This is Gen Z's entry into the canon. You
Yeah.
know, like every generation has their great teen comedy. There is your Breakfast Club. There is Dazed and Confused and things like this.
Yep.
For us millennials and Gen Xers, but for Gen Z, Booksmart is the best teen comedy that's come around for this generation. It exemplifies all the tropes, and I mean not like last time. Last time there was the bully and the cheerleader and the popular girls and all that lah. But there's a whole new group and tribalism that exists in Gen Z that we didn't have in school. You know,
Yeah.
like there's
Totally.
the SJW people, the gay crew, and things like that, or the theater people. It's all very different, and I really love this insight into Gen Z high school dynamics. And
Yeah.
I also really think it's a very funny and also ultimately quite poignant look at like female friendship.
Yes. Well, yeah, a very different look at female friendship as opposed to my brilliant friend that we just talked about on the last episode.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, like it's definitely it was quite a ride and a very easy watch for me. To call it Breaking Bad but with girls, I think is not off the mark at all.
Super bad, you mean?
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, why did I say Breaking Bad?
Yeah.
Because Better Call. Well, Breaking Bad for girls. I would watch that. By the way,
Mhm.
Gilligan, if you're listening,
Yep.
yeah, we would totally be down to watch that. But yeah, Super Bad for girls. Yeah, that's basically it. I really kind of liked uh the fact that they hit all the notes, and but there's a lot more nuance. Like again, you say it's like life for Gen Zs are
Mm.
very different, right, from what we kind of understand. And having a kind of peek into their life with kind of like the more, how do I put this, right? There's so much more that they need to take note of. Like things aren't necessarily cut and dry. You don't have the many categories of people that you see in high school is much more expanded. And
Yeah.
you have people who straddle many of these categories, and I don't think that book smart shies away from that. All the characters there are complex in their own kind of way.
They
Even
transcend the stereotype, right?
Yeah, exactly, and it's fascinating just to kind of see that. And obviously, that one particular scene of the confrontation in the bathroom that Molly has,
Mm.
that was great. That was such a solid, like, kind of like moment. In terms of like the emotional pitch of that, and then she just kind of like loses it when it dawns on her that people are achieving success.
Mm-hmm.
What she believes to be success is being achieved by people who she thinks hasn't put in the work, and that sets such a great tone and the motivations for the rest of the night. that I'm just like, yeah, sure. I totally understand why they are doing what they're doing,
Hmm.
and why they're going about it, and the shenanigans that they get up to are pretty hilarious.
Yeah. As you mentioned, like no one in Booksmart is an archetype. They are just people trying to do their best.
Yeah.
And this is one of the neat teen comedies that kind of subverts the trope of teen comedies where you are from this social group, you're from that social group, but like the more they get to know these people, they're all just human beings trying to do the best that they can, and everyone is so much more interesting and complex than they seem if you really take the time to get to know them.
Yep.
And the girls from Booksmart, like these underdog uppity characters who think of themselves as like disenfranchised and unpopular, but they themselves are a bit elitist too.
Yep.
So when they get to learn more about their classmates and schoolmates throughout the course of the night, that offers a lot of depth to and kind of breaks the high school archetype nature of these type of movies, and it's really good.
Yeah.
Booksmart number one doesn't have a villain.
Yep.
There is no like evil principal or anything like that. So it's really cool. It's just two girls out there having fun, coming of age, learning about themselves, learning about their friends. I think the performances from Beanie Feldstein and Caitlin Dever are like remarkable. Their dynamic as friends
Oh, so good.
is wonderful. Like you immediately like when Caitlin Dever goes to pick up Beanie Feldstein and they do like the little impromptu dance, which for the record isn't in the script. They just like did it and they kept it in. Uh, like you immediately are invested in their friendship.
Yeah, and the whole
And
like compliment barrage thing is fucking amazing. Those two
yeah,
several
it's
sequences,
hilarious.
it's so
Yeah.
good. It is so good. Yeah.
Apparently the compliments were like ad lib. They weren't like written down on the page. On the page it was just like compliment each other and they just
Oh
came
my
up with
god.
stuff.
Yeah. So it was so good. I think so much so to the point. I think the one before they with the sequin dresses when just before they head into the party, right?
Yeah.
Miss Fine, played by Jessica Williams, right? Like the
Yeah.
look on her face as she's watching this kind of unfold is pretty amazing, and it kind of gave me a hint that it was probably ad libbed because there was this
Mhm.
look of kind of like shock and surprise to like what was unfolding before her, and that was kind of classic
I
moment in the whole
know.
movie.
And I think like every single side character like is super memorable. I forgot who the rich kid's name was, the one that threw a yacht party that no one came to.
Jared,
Jared, oh my god, Jared is so funny.
yeah,
I love him so much. I love the gay theater the gay theater dude. The guy who says Barcelona.
oh,
He's fucking hilarious. His costume, murder mystery
oh,
party,
so funny.
brilliant. Billy Lord who plays Gigi,
Oh,
who pops up everywhere like this magical party coyote.
yeah.
Is pretty much like kind of stole the movie for me.
Yeah, same. Every time she shows up, I burst out laughing just because it's ridiculous, right? Like
Mm,
we don't actually take her seriously at all when she's first introduced. She's Jared's girlfriend, and like
yep.
she's kind of like this, like druggy slash rich girl kind of trope that she plays
Yep.
into. But like she's like the spiritual bartender,
Yeah.
persona where she just comes in and like drops wisdom on people and drugs, and I
It's
love it. It's so
it's
good.
amazing. It's like the first party they go to is Jared's yacht party, which is itself hilarious.
Yeah.
And then Gigi jumps off the deck into the sea, and like she like magically pops up at the theater party.
Yeah,
It's
playing a
pretty
role. She's
amazing.
playing a major role at the theater party as well, as the mayor. And I'm just like, what in the world is going on with like? It's so good, and like even her at the end when she's playing the piano at the graduation. I'm just like, what the
Yeah.
fuck is going on here?
For people who don't know, Billy Lord is actually Carrie Fisher's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
She actually played young Leia, right,
Yep,
in the last Rise of Skywalker
yep,
film,
yep.
which wasn't a great movie, but I think that was one of the great sweet moments that she got to play Leia as her mother.
Yeah.
That was awesome as well. And this was my first introduction to Billy Lord. I had no idea like how funny she was.
Yeah,
Uh,
I haven't seen her do anything else other than that. Obviously, that made headlines, right? Because
yep.
Carrie Fisher, much beloved, and her
Mhm.
daughter filling her shoes, sure. But like, I had to pause for a moment when she first popped. I was just like, wait a minute, that she looks really familiar. So I had to Google it.
Mhm.
Yeah, but like as kind of like a first outing, watching her do her thing, like I would love to see her in more things. I really do.
Definitely, man. Obviously, like Beanie Feldstein is one of Greta Gerwig's like go-to girls. So she's been in things like Lady Bird
Yep.
and stuff like that. So you've seen her around. Kayleen Dever has been like in 100 TV shows. I first saw her in Justified.
Uh-huh.
She's nearly in every TV show that I love, the Americans and things like that.
Yeah.
She's brilliant, but like every single side character here, like could have their own sitcom. Like they're
For
that
sure.
funny, they're that charismatic. I mean, obviously like Lisa Kudrow, who plays I think was it Amy or Molly's mother? I forgot.
I
I
think
think it's
it's
Amy's mother.
Amy's mother. Yeah.
Yeah, and Will Forte also, like the over supportive parents, like who are too supportive.
Yeah.
It goes like past the point of decency. It's pretty hilarious as well.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody has a great role in this, but I think at the end of the day, like the crux is the dissolution and the reconstruction of Molly and Amy's friendship throughout the course of the night.
Yeah.
Especially with Caitlin Dever kind of trying to understand her own queerness,
Yeah.
like her sexual identity, and Molly, who is Beanie Feldstein, just basically trying to get together with a boy. One of the best film sequences that I saw last year
Uh-huh.
was this very one take sequence at the pool in the last party of the night where Caitlin Dever goes around and then she jumps into the pool.
Yep.
And it's this one take shot where she's looking around for the girl that she likes. And then like it all ends up all the way out, and Perfume Genius is playing. She sees the girl that she likes is making out with the boy that
Molly likes.
that Beanie Feldstein,
Yeah.
that Molly likes. She comes out, wants to go out, Malala and all of that.
Yeah.
It breaks down into this wonderful, beautifully acted argument that you can't hear the dialogue for.
Yeah, they cut it off halfway. It's so good.
Yeah,
It's
because
so good.
like the first half of the argument is the real meat of the argument.
Yeah.
And then we've all been in that argument where in the second half of it, you're just hurling insults to hurl insults.
Yeah, it doesn't
Like
matter.
you're not. It doesn't matter. You get the gist. You get the meat of what they're trying to do to each other. At that point, it's just hurtful,
Yeah.
And I love that you didn't need to hear what they were saying.
Yeah.
Instead, you just kind of look at their reactions and what they were doing to kind of understand that like this was the breaking point for them.
Yeah.
I thought that was just a beautifully filmed sequence, right? From the single take shot from the swimming pool all the way out to the argument.
Yeah.
It was one of the best film sequences I've ever seen.
Yeah, it was so good. I was very, very taken with the whole swimming pool thing, and like I didn't expect at the beginning of their argument sequence, right? I really didn't expect them to make a choice like that. I just thought, okay, this is gonna escalate and all that. So when the audio cut off, I was just like, really? Wow, seriously? Like it's such a intentional and indicative choice of how good and surprised I have been with this movie in total. I totally understand why you are a bit upset that it didn't get as much eyes as it should have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also feel like Olivia Wilde, this being her directorial debut, to direct a film like that, to direct a sequence like that.
Yeah.
She has such a unique eye and a unique perspective on female friendship.
Yeah.
She was one of the. This was one of the movies that made me really upset with I guess the Oscars this year.
Yeah.
I mean, like I wasn't upset at Parasite won or anything, but like I was just upset with the lack of, I guess, female directorial representation.
Yeah.
Like I think like Greta Gerwig and Lulu Wang for The Farewell and Olivia Wilde should have been nominated for this. But Booksmart has a second layer of bias from the Oscars whereby comedies just don't get a fair rep.
Yeah.
Dramas always get,
way
the spotlight.
Yeah. But
And everybody agrees that comedies are like harder to do. It's factual. And Olivia Wilde kind of deserves more credit than she got for making a film of this caliber.
Yeah.
And it's a teen comedy that kind of transcended its genre to become like this. I think like it's a new kind of cult classic.
Yeah.
Like Dazed and Confused, for example, wasn't a big box office draw or anything back when it came out. But
Yeah.
then over the years, people rented it from word of mouth and stuff like that. It grew to become a phenomenon, and I hope that the same thing happens with Booksmart because it's good enough to do that.
For sure. I definitely hope it does. I mean, like, I will be recommending this to other people if they want a good laugh, and like they want something that's heartwarming and just a very solid coming of age story. That doesn't kind of like shy away from a lot of things. Like it delivers what the premise is about, and it delivers it in spades in a very kind of like refreshing way. So like I'm very, very taken by Olivia Wilde's directorial debut with this. I hope she does more stuff.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I do have to shout out also, like, if you haven't seen it, like, do look out for the soundtrack, because it's a killer soundtrack,
It
banging,
is
man.
absolutely
Yeah.
like the timing of every song as it
Mhm.
appears in the scene is spot on. It's
Yes.
absolutely spot on. It's just like one of those things that you have to. You didn't even need to kind of pay attention to that. Like you kind of latched onto the fact that yeah, okay, like very specifically at this point in time, this song is needed. It felt
Mhm.
that way, but sometimes soundtracks kind of get lost in the background or stuff to support the scene, in a much more like subtle way. But
Mhm.
for this time around, I was like, damn, this is a solid soundtrack, right? And it's cut exactly as it needs to be in the movie.
Yeah, I mean, even when we're talking about the pool scene earlier, when the drums come in on that Perfume Genius song,
Mm-hmm.
as the tension ratchets up, it's wonderfully edited and beautifully directed,
Yep.
lah. And I think like Booksmart also thematically manages to be inclusive and progressive without being precious about anything
Yeah.
or sacrificing an ounce of humor. It feels at once like this huge moment for the teen movie genre, and also effortless enough to make one wonder why something like this took so long. Wonderful film.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, if you haven't seen Booksmart, if you live in Singapore, this freaking VPN it is on Netflix France of all places. If you live in America or anywhere else, you can watch it on Hulu, or just rent it or buy it on iTunes and VOD and things like that, lah.
Yeah. Yeah. Highly recommend. Not gonna regret it. I had a lot of fun watching this.
Mhm.
As a kind of contrast to Barry as well, actually. So
Yeah,
I have very
yeah,
different.
definitely,
Yeah.
man.
So like, um, I really want to see what Beanie Feldstein and Caitlin Dever continue to do as they kind of like progress into their careers. I think the two of them have
Yes.
some major kind of acting chops.
Mhm.
I hope they work together again. I hope. I hope. I mean, maybe not in this particular franchise, but the chemistry is palpable and it is thoroughly enjoyable.
I would be down for a Booksmart sequel. I mean, if we wanted to reunite them, I think there's a lot of room for this friendship.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for
Definitely,
sure,
man.
for sure.
Actually, like one of our future episodes in Behold, I will be recommending a dramatic Caitlin Dever mini series. There's I think 4 or 5 episodes. But there'll be like few episodes from now on. But like you will get to see a different side of Caitlin Dever.
Nice. I would love to see a bit more range. I mean, like I've only seen I okay, Justified, yes, one, and the couple of episodes of Americans that I've got. But
Mm.
other than that, like this is kind of my first kind of seeing her in all her glory, front and center. So, yeah, please do. I'll be more than keen to check out something else from her.
Awesome. Next week, well, not next week. In 2 weeks from now, we'll be back with a brand new episode of Behold.
Ye-
I think we'll do feedback.
Yeah, we're gonna do Fleabag as the main topic. Again,
Definitely.
yeah.
We're still deciding on our subtopics. Isa has already recommended me Mushishi, which I have seen already. So I can't wait to talk about that. It's 2 seasons and 2 specials,
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And I got through that in like a week. It was pretty insane how quickly I consumed it. And I can't wait to talk about it next time.
Yeah.
Till then, this has been Hinzer.
This is Isa. And
Goodbye, guys.
bye.